It's the venue with the billion-dollar view, and with the receivers adopting a long-term aim of keeping the club open, ways must be found to attract customers. Despite extensive refurbishment over the past 2 years, cash flow has been insufficient to enable the club to pay its bills, and creditors gathered today to hear from representatives of Lawler and Davidson.
Today was mainly to say, look, we're involved, we're looking at all avenues of recovery, we will keep you duly informed, and we're looking after your interests.
The receivers will now meet the club's board to begin formulating a recovery plan, which will include stimulating function catering, bar sales and gaming machines. But above all, it has to be a bowls-led recovery, or by law, the site would revert to open parkland.
A vital term of the lease is that it maintains its purpose as a bowling club. Without the bowling members, then obviously the club would come to an end.
A further meeting of creditors will be held in mid-December, at which they'll be fully informed of the receivers' plans for the future of the club.
The mysterious recluse Leo Malley is a well-known face around Mayfield, a local identity known for his eccentric behaviour. But ever since sewer and waste disposal services were cut off to his decrepit building where he lives on Maitland Road, neighbours have been complaining. They allege that urine and human waste are being dumped in the street.
And once the earthquake hit, well, the shop was just put out of action. The water went, the sewer went, the power went. And that was the end of it as far as I knew, but then he continued to live there.
Mr Malley has been in court a number of times over disputes with council, and neighbours are calling for more action to be taken.
But as far as I can see, it's just gone to the too hard basket, and they're not prepared to do anything about it.
Newcastle City Council says it needs more evidence before approaching Mr Malley, but it's now investigating the situation. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
John Kosmina had an unenviable coaching record in Newcastle, and when he returned last season, Breakers fans left him a stark reminder. It's a different story this year. Kosmina has coached his side to the top of the table, undefeated in 9 games.
They're a very good side and they're playing very well, so they're the hottest team in the country at the moment.
Newcastle was a thorn in Brisbane's side last season, the Strikers going down on both occasions.
I hope the supporters do come out and give Cosy a bit of stick. It might upset him a little bit, so and might work in our favour. So all in all, our players are out there to do a job and beat a Brisbane team, not beat John Kosmina.
The Breakers bounced back last Friday night after a string of losses, defeating Canberra 2-1. John Bonavolia, who was injured in the Canberra game, has a 60-40 chance of taking the field for the clash with Brisbane. Captain Shane Price returns from suspension. There'll also be added incentive for Breakers striker Andy Harper, who'll be playing against his old club. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
The news that Virgin Airlines will start operating in Australia next year sent regional airport managements into a tailspin. Among those lobbying to get Virgin is Newcastle Airport. But even if Virgin decides not to operate out of the Hunter, the airport will still benefit.
What Virgin will do, and the other airlines that have announced that they're going to start significant services, they'll expand the market so much that we'll get spin-off from it.
And thanks to some wise foresight, the airport is prepared to take on board more carriers. A multi-million-dollar upgrade currently underway will ensure the future viability of the airport into the next millennium.
The terminal's expanding. We predicted this would happen about now, and we'll be ready for the larger aircraft as soon as they arrive.
But while attracting more domestic carriers is a priority for airport management, becoming an international port of call is still a way off.
First you need air services before you need the airport. An airport's like a bus stop. You put a bus stop somewhere, it won't attract buses. You've got to get something else to attract the buses.
The new apron and car park is due to open by Christmas, while work on the terminal should be completed by May next year. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Anne and David Mann have spent the last 13 years cruising in their 52-foot steel spray named Blue Master. The ketch-rigged craft isn't the fastest boat on the lake, but is one of the most comfortable. The modern-day version is a far cry from the original, built by Joshua Slocum, pictured here in Newcastle Harbour in 1896 on his solo around-the-world voyage.
It was a real achievement. No motor, no electronics, and with one on board. This is why we admire him so much.
The Australian Spray Society has 80 members, and a fleet is expected on Lake Macquarie this Sunday for a 1:30 race starting at Belmont.
They come in 50-footers and down to 22s is the smallest that we're aware of, and the smaller ones of course perform better in the light winds if that's to be the case on Sunday.
100 years on from Joshua Slocum's global adventure, it's still plain sailing for the Spray. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Environmentally friendly hot water systems are fast catching on among consumers who want to save both money and the environment. Newcastle-based company Quantum is building systems that use sophisticated heat pump technology to heat the water.
They're manufactured using refrigeration technology, and what we've basically done is pick the best aspects of refrigeration and use the heat off that refrigeration system rather than the cold.
The method is both faster and about 70% more energy efficient than conventional systems. According to Managing Director Steve Harmon, it's a big plus for the environment, helping reduce carbon dioxide emissions.
Because we use so little power, and most of our power is fossil fuel generated, we're really having a big impact on the reduction of CO2 emissions. An example is for every one of our hot water services that replaces a traditional electric element, it's similar to taking one motor vehicle off the road.
The system also helps both domestic and commercial consumers keep energy costs down. Quantum took out the greenhouse reduction section of the awards. The Hunter Region Botanic Gardens won the Community Education Division for its diverse range of environmental programs. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
In less than a month, it'll all be clear. But what's already emerging is that large numbers of small businesses are ignoring the Millennium Bug. An Australian Bureau of Statistics survey has found 44% of businesses don't intend to undertake any Y2K work at all. Nello Upholstery is one such business.
I don't feel there's a need to. If I have a problem, well, I'll worry about it after it happens.
These businesses are, however, mostly small companies with fewer than 5 employees with little or no computer equipment. Even so, some are predicting flow-on effects to the economy.
If by chance small business, 10% of small business went under, that's a depression Australia-wide.
It's not a small thing for big business, but it is a big thing for small business.
Even the Minister for Information Technology, Kim Yaden, is alarmed.
It's always a concern and been a concern of the government for a considerable period of time, and we have gone to a lot of trouble to try and bring the issue to the attention of small business.
The government is urging all businesses to have manual backup systems in place in case computer-driven services collapse.
One saving grace for businesses may, however, be the New Year long weekend, giving companies time to fix any problems.
Because if things are going to fail, then they'll fail on the 1st of January. And certainly organisations can respond to that while the majority of people are still at home and enjoying their holidays.
Some are still not convinced New Year's Day will be drama-free.
We've already built a container, a 40-foot container, which is designed for our own living quarters. It can be put under the ground. We've got 2 other containers. We've got storage, we've got garaging, we've got petrol, we've got fuel. We've got all enough to last us for 18 months.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
The Indian Pacific runs across the continent from one ocean to the other, and survivors from yesterday's wreckage come from all over the country, including the Hunter. Bobby Merritt from Newcastle had her 7-month-old baby Letitia sitting next to her when the collision occurred. Reen Simons from Nelson Bay was another to feel the impact. shortly after he had finished his breakfast on Australia's famous long-distance train.
The train split and the carriage went about 50 metres up the track.
And as an inquiry is being held into the disaster, Mr Simon's evidence may be vital to finding out exactly what caused the interurban train to plough into the back of the Indian Pacific, which was almost stopped.
They said signal failure, but there was SRA guys working on the side of the track. We went past them, so like if we knew, the Indian Pacific knew the signal failure, why didn't the Mount Victoria train?
A business deal gone wrong, and 3 men were hired to murder a businessman, the part owner at the New South Wales Equestrian Centre. For $10,000 each, Aaron Muir, Tony Polverino and Gary Broderick were to make the hit look like a robbery bungled in the middle of the night. But John and Susan Stewart fought for their lives. Mrs Stewart was almost strangled. Her husband was stabbed twice and had his throat cut. Their children still have nightmares after witnessing the attack. The investigation lasted more than 12 months, but one by one the suspects crumbled. Aaron Muir was first. He told police he was involved, but said he never struck Mr Stewart. He has been sentenced to at least 7 years. Gary Broderick held John Stewart while Broderick's boyhood friend Tony Polverino slashed his throat. They both received a minimum of 8 years. Judge Coleman questioned what could have motivated 3 men from good backgrounds to become involved in such a violent crime. In each case, he found the answer to be greed. After the sentencing, Andrew Stewart spoke on his brother's behalf.
You can never take into account the impact that it's had on the family. It's been horrific.
And as to who was responsible for hiring the men, a final plea.
I think there must be people out there who have got more information that they could give to the police.
Stockton Beach was more like a lake for the opening day of the Longboard Legends event, and while the waves weren't big, the boards certainly were. Among those finding their way into tomorrow's finals were locals Josh Ferris and Jai Byrne, but it's an event as much about fun and family as competition. Also making a splash, teams in the State Under-20 Water Polo Championships. It's the first time the titles have been held in the Hunter, and also the first time they've included a New South Wales country team. After tomorrow's finals, selectors will name a state squad for the Australian Championships in April.
Christmas spirit mixed well with petrol fumes as around 3,000 bikers showed their softer side by taking part in the annual toy run. Heading the procession was a well-known international traveller in a red suit. Now in its 22nd year, the charity event is believed to be one of the longest uninterrupted bike toy runs in the country, with bikers from the Gold Coast to Wollongong taking part.
Their books have already doubled. They've got twice the amount of people on their books as what they did last year. So the more people that respond to things like this, the better for us.
Despite changing the day to avoid Saturday morning chaos, the procession of gleaming two-wheeled wonders brought traffic to a standstill. And everything from the meanest Harley to tiny postie scooter took part. At Horseshoe Beach, a mountain of gifts soon grew as the legion of leather-clad Santas delivered toys for the city's underprivileged kids. Even the Scouts joined in, donating toys.
We'll give out something like $130,000 worth of toys this Christmas, maybe more than that. And if it's not for things like this, where people come together and give toys, we just can't do it.
But it's not just needy children who benefit. Bikies are encouraged as part of the Family Fun Day to donate blood.
We beat them last year because we had more bikes donating blood than the police last year. So, yeah, we'll beat them again this year.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Looks like a shock absorber's broke or something. Clayton Pine right behind him. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 feature races in a row for Luke Pine. Amazing stuff. Sims gets second. In third, it's Clayton Pine. Back to Lynch. Pine. Whoa! Clayton Pine on the inside of Sims. Whoa! Sims not content to let him get up the inside.
The Breakers' first home win lifted them to 8th on the table, and it was all the sweeter, ending league leader Brisbane's unbeaten run.
Yeah, it was good to back the Canberra win up away, you know, with a win against the leaders on Friday night. So hopefully we can string a few together and move up the table.
The secret was the forward combination of Andy Harper and John Bonavolia. Bonavolia scoring his 5th of the season to give the Breakers a 2-1 victory.
Yeah, good combination. I mean, you got big, strong halves with a lot of experience, and the nippy, speedy John Bonavolia running off him. So they're striking up, you know, a good sort of combination and working well together.
But the victory came at a cost. Glenn Sprott missing the second half of the match with a knee injury.
Yeah, he come off at half time. He's suffered an injury just behind his knee, so we're hoping that, you know, he's back in the side against Parramatta Power because you know, we're getting a bit of balance and shape now, so we need him at the back.
And the fact that their strikers have now lost all 3 encounters against the Breakers since coach John Cosmina moved from Newcastle to Brisbane was not lost on the 5,000 strong crowd or the players.
It's good to sort of get one over your sort of old coach, old rival, I suppose, but you know, at the moment he's got the last laugh there on top of the table still, and we've got to get there.
And a former Breaker is making news. Josh Maguire, just signed by Romanian First Division side Star Bucharest for 5 years. Josh went to Romania 8 weeks ago for a trial and played a couple of games before being signed. Today, he arrived home for a Christmas break with his family at Dudley, a little phased by his sudden success.
It's a long way from home and it's a long time away from home. Hopefully, maybe move on to another club, but 5 years is a good start.
Around 6:30 this morning, workers at Kane's Grain and Oil Processing Plant at Rutherford were helping firefighters put out a blaze in a silo of cottonseed when a massive explosion rocked the factory.
While the firefighters have been carrying out firefighting operations, an explosion has occurred, in so doing injuring the 4 personnel.
Robert Anderson from Lorne, Ron Brooker from Maitland and Jeff Terry of Rutherford all suffered burns to between 60 and 80% of their bodies and were airlifted to the John Hunter Hospital in Newcastle to be stabilised. Talara Fire Captain Ron Jenkins received burns to his face and hands. But there was more than just the medical emergency to deal with.
There is a real fear of a further explosion.
After several tense hours, the all-clear was given, allowing Salvation Army officers to counsel shocked workers.
Some of them were in great shock because there was 3 or 4 of them that were in very close proximity and are only realising just how lucky they were.
Work cover and scientific police are tonight trying to piece together exactly what caused today's explosion. In the meantime, the tight-knit workforce is rallying in support of their injured workmates. 2 of the victims have been flown to Sydney's Royal North Shore Hospital Burns Unit, the 3rd to Concord Hospital. All remain in a critical condition. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Country music sensation Gina Jeffries is used to getting her fans up and dancing, but few take to the stage like this. The smiles, testimony to the enjoyment of everyone at the Newcastle branch of Life Without Barriers, treated to a special Christmas wish. Gina Jeffries says the chance to bring a bit of joy is worth its weight in gold.
You know, we really enjoy doing it, and it makes the people happy, and it really gives us a thrill to do it, so we were glad to be here.
Requests from the audience flew thick and fast, testing Gina's musical knowledge. Still, she appreciated the enthusiasm.
Oh, they were great, but participation was 10 out of 10.
When Hunter Health submitted its preferred option to restructure health services last month, Lord Mayor John Tate was one of several committee members appointed to take part in the decision-making. And it seems he was so impressed with what he saw that last night he convinced councillors to endorse the package, which, amongst other changes, will see the closure of the Royal Newcastle Hospital.
There's good reason to be concerned about that, except that you can't sustain expensive equipment in 3 or 4 locations throughout Newcastle.
Hunter Health will hand down its decision on the restructure package next week, expected to endorse a new polyclinic for inner-city Newcastle, the redeveloping or rebuilding of the Mater Hospital and the upgrading of Belmont Hospital. But Council has dismissed concerns that the closure of the Royal will impact on the economy of the CBD, claiming instead it will have the opposite effect.
The building can then go to another level of use, which will be tourism based, and in due course that will build up to beyond, I believe, the economic impact that the hospital now has.
Helen Kapalos, NBN News.